You're listening to the Launchcast, the podcast about leadership, business, life, and growth with me, your host, George Andriopoulos.
It's like food for your ears.
At this time, I'm going to ask that you fasten your seatbelts. Launch sequence.
Launch sequence activated.
Launch sequence activated.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Woo! Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Launchcast. This is take 2, by the way, guys. Trying this again. Episode 303, season 3. I'm not going to have butterfingers and hit the wrong button again like I did the first time. This one's called Repurpose Your Pain. I see my guest in the green room. She's in a whole lot of pain watching me do this for a second time right now. It's the LaunchDad himself bringing you your favorite podcast on the planet. Leadership, business, life, growth. Right now, as the beat drops.
Into the black hole.
What is happening, guys? I am still super rusty at this in season 3. It's been a while, man. It's been like 5 months since I've done the Launchcast, and I'm getting back into it. We're in the 3rd episode of this new season, and we've had so much great response to our first 2 episodes. That was the 2-part roundtable that we did with our TEDx alumni, one of which is here tonight, and I'm so excited to have her, and we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, thank you so much for the great response on our first 2 episodes. I had a lot of fun doing those. Actually, truth be told, they weren't meant to be podcast episodes originally. When I was recording them, they were meant to be a little piece that we were going to do to market TEDx Farmingdale, which right now, as we're recording this on Thursday night, is happening in a day and a half. And we're super excited about it. But yeah, they turned into, the first one especially turned into such great content that I was like, all right, I got to do this again. And then the second one didn't disappoint. Twice as many guests on that second episode, twice as much content, and we did a lot of good out there talking about this TED experience and, you know, bringing these ideas worth spreading to the red dot and spreading them out in the world. So I thank everybody for the support on those first 2 episodes. And here we go. We're going to continue doing what we do. We're back with another leadership interview today, my favorite kind of episode. But I will tell you, we have some crazy shit cooking this season, guys. I told you that we are doing some of these roundtable debate episodes. And so I've been doing the logistics for the first one of those. I'm not going to give it away. But we have some really important conversations that are going to be happening on this show this season. So I'm excited for you to see the new format here as we continue on this season. But this is our bread and butter tonight. This is what we do. So I'm not going to waste too much time. I'm going to mention one more thing before I bring our guest on. The production company stuff that we talked about in the last couple of episodes is really taking shape. And so you're going to see a lot of podcasts that are going to be produced by the company that produces this podcast. And we're going to brand that. We're going to start talking about that. So I want to just throw out there as a little mini ad. Anybody out there in the podcast world that is looking to be produced by some people that know what we're doing a little bit, we know a little bit about a little bit, reach out. Reach out to me at Launchpad CEO on all of our social media platforms. DM me, hit me up. We will have a conversations. Or if you are new to this and you are looking to get into podcasting as a platform for your messaging, hit me up. Let's talk. All right. So without any further ado, you guys are tired of looking at this ugly face. Let me bring on a much more pleasant face to look at than mine. There she is.
Hey.
My guest today. My good friend, Estela Lugo. Estela, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. It's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me do the brief bio, Estela, and then we will get it going. So Estela Lugo was born and raised on Long Island, New York by the world's most amazing Puerto Rican parents. I can attest to that. This is true. Miguel and Eneda. They believe salsa dancing and gardening are the key to never growing old. Her younger sister, Melissa, is usually mistaken as a twin. Yes, for sure, because of their shared laugh and wardrobe. They also share the same progressive disease, Charcot-Marie-Tooth, a condition that atrophies the muscles in the feet, legs, and hands. Growing up, Estela was surrounded by community service and could be found most times with crayons and notebooks in hand. After 4 happy and art-filled years at Farmingdale High School, my alma mater too, followed by another 4 at FIT, Estela pursued a career in design and is now combining her creative energy with passion for the nonprofit world. Her children, Bella and Devin, along with her partner, Jason, keep her laughing and make sure she doesn't take herself too seriously, or life too seriously for that matter. Estela became a TEDx speaker with the inaugural TEDx Farmingdale event in 2019, and there's more and more and more that we're going to talk about. Impressive bio, my friend. You did it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You did it. So I'm going to start this thing off the way we always start these. Estela, are you a leader?
I guess I'm on this podcast, so that qualifies me. So I'm going to have to go with yeah.
You definitely are a leader. I want to hear your definition of a leader. Talk to me about what leadership means to you and why you feel that you're a leader.
I think leadership has a lot to do with listening more than speaking. And for me, it's about empowering other people, not so much being someone who's followed, but someone who helps people connect with their inner leaders.
Yeah, that's when we've talked about this last season a lot. Every single episode that we have a leader come on here and we do one of these leadership interviews. I love how we've never had the same definition twice. Never ever had the same definition twice. And so that shows the audience here that there are so many layers to leadership and so many different ways to look at it. And we're going to dive really, really into Estela's leadership and what she's putting out into the world right now. So let's sort of rewind. Let's start at the beginning. Little Estela in North Massapequa, right?
Yep, very little Estela.
Yeah, in North Massapequa, New York, right in the Farmingdale School District. I met you I must have been in 8th grade, and you were in 7th. Yeah, and you quickly became a friend, and we've maintained that friendship for many years. But I remember that the first thing that I ever noticed about you was the way you walked, and I remember just with our group of friends that we kind of had this like amazement with you, right? And you don't want to just label somebody based on how they walk, based on how they look, how they move, but right, we're human beings, and so that's, especially when we were kids, that was sort of a thing. And I just remember always being so impressed with you because that quickly disappeared, to me at least. And I just remember you being like the life of the conversation, always making me laugh every time we were together. And, it kind of taught me a lesson personally in terms of how we look at people and the many layers of people, and that we can't just define them by a disability or an ability. Talk to me about growing up with a disability, what that was like for you.
Yeah. So yeah, just a little note on that. The walking thing, I was definitely twerking before it was a thing. So I wanted to take credit for the whole twerking trend.
I'll get on that. I'll contact my people.
Yes, let Cardi B know. But yeah, growing up, so, the whole disability journey started at around 3.5 years old when my parents noticed that I was falling a lot and I was tripping over my feet, and they took me to my doctor, and they had me tested, and came back with this weird disease called Charcot-Marie-Tooth, which is not a dental disorder. So yeah, my parents had no idea. It was just basically labeled under muscular dystrophy. And as you can imagine, as a parent, it was devastating. They had no idea what to expect. But my parents are super resilient people, and instead of kind of going down the path of feeling bad for themselves and kind of hiding me away from society, which unfortunately some families do, they decided to go down the whole advocacy road, and they started volunteering for the Muscular Dystrophy Association on Long Island. And they submitted my photo when I was about 5 years old for the poster child of Long Island. And, they accepted me, and that was it. From that point on, we were every single weekend attending events on Long Island, Channel 12 News, newspapers, dance-a-thons across every high school in Long Island. And we just became like embraced by this community and these families that were going through similar experiences as my parents. So it was very cathartic. And we grew up, with this little spotlight on us in a way that was really encouraging and helped us build confidence. I really feel blessed that that was kind of our introduction to this journey of disability, because I know that's a privilege. Not a lot of people have that.
Yeah, but privilege be damned. I mean, that couldn't have been easy, right? That couldn't have been easy to be just dubbed this poster child. And when you talk about identity, which is again in the early 90s, the late 80s, early 90s, identity wasn't a word, really, right? It's not something we really considered or thought about. But we look back to the experiences that have shaped us into who we are now, and the trauma and the good, the bad, and the ugly. When you talk about identity, what did that feel like to sort of be synonymous with this disability?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely, I was well aware of it. And, as I grew older, it became more and more kind of part of my identity. I had a surgery in 6th grade, which, was pretty major. It was, I was out of school for 6 to 8 weeks with leg casts up to my legs. So, that was kind of like, I was that kid. I obviously I had a lot of friends, and, I had some really great peer support, but it was very clear to me at a young age that I was not going to be included in sports. Around the age of 10 or so, I really lost the ability to run. Up until then, I was doing dance and baseball, but it is a progressive disability. So it was hard to kind of start to let go of those things at a time in your life where you're supposed to be really, diving headfirst into sports and dance. And, I'm not sure for me if it was as a result of having a disability or having a disability, kind of pushed me into more of the arts direction, because I wasn't able to go about with the sports. But I really took a liking to all things creative, and it was something that I can kind of sit down for hours and draw pictures and kind of use that as a form of therapy. So that was something that really helped me through those years. It was something I was good at, right? I couldn't run or do the dance team, but I was good at art and I was good at design, and that kind of filled that gap for me to some degree.
Yeah. So within the community, I don't know what that community looked like for you in terms of being so involved in these causes and advocacy at that age and with your parents. Were there peers in this area that were again, you said this was kind of like lumped in with muscular dystrophy, but it's really its own thing. Were there peers that you knew of that suffered from the same disability at the time, and how did they? What was that comparison like for you? I guess is the question, because not everybody is you, right? And when I say that since I've known you since middle school, you're an outgoing person. You have a great personality. You're a funny person. It's very simple and very easy that when you're talking to Estela Lugo to kind of forget about that stuff like very quickly. And it's just not that you weren't one of us to begin with, right? But it's like you just felt like another person, right? That you didn't kind of see that the disability. And so, but not everybody has that personality. Not everybody can sort of make that kind of transition for themselves personally. What was that like for peers of yours within that community?
Yeah, I think, it's a different experience for everyone. I think for me, because it happened so young, and because I was diagnosed so young, I didn't know anything different. And there's cases of disability where that's not the way it happens. It, for some people it happens overnight. It's a traumatic experience or accident. So for me, I didn't know anything different, so I didn't really have much to compare to. But one of the defining moments of growing up with a disability was we went to the MDA camp, kids camp, when we were about 10 years old to about 12, so 2 or 3 years, for 2 weeks in the summer. And it was all different types of kids with different types of muscular dystrophy. And that was the first time where we really got to live with other kids with disabilities, a lot of them more physically affected than my sister and I. And so it really opened our eyes to, okay, A, we're not the only ones with disability. It was me and my sister both had this. And B, it taught us a sense of gratitude, like, okay, we're not able to do this, but we can still do this. We found ourselves at camp, like helping other kids, get in and out of the pool or do tasks. And we became the helpers where, in our everyday life, we were the ones being helped. So it really was empowering. And we saw how other kids were living with this disease as well. And I have to tell you, like, we became inspired by the friends that we came across with. A lot of them were terminally ill. And, I just remember so vividly putting on these talent shows with these kids. And it was just like, for those 2 weeks, nobody had a disability.
Yeah.
And when I tell you, like, you describe me like that, like, that's how it was for us. We were such a tribe, because the minute we met, it was just like this unspoken connection with each other. And we became the best of friends. And I still have a lot of close friends to this day from that camp. So that really opened our eyes and gave us a sense of gratitude, and was like, we were like, okay, we can do this. If these kids can do this, so can we. We're going to be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. So when we talk about outlets, especially during that age, those teen years, so you talked about it a little bit before, talk about the role that creativity, art, and design played in your life at that time.
Yeah, like I said, it was kind of like an escape. It was something that I could build a skill in. It became part of my identity. I wasn't just the girl with a disability. I was the artist. I was the creative kid. And I often credit, like, creativity with disability, because I think growing up with a disability, you have no choice but to become creative to some degree, because you have to constantly be hacking and observing your environment and, thinking of new innovative ways to live your life in this world that was not created for people with disabilities. So I think people with disabilities tend to be more creative because of that. And I think it's one of the assets that are often overlooked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many memories that come flooding back when I think back to that time. No, it's funny. You mentioned muscular dystrophy dance-a-thon. I remember we had at our school, and that's actually one of my first memories of you, is that muscular dystrophy dance. And if I'm not mistaken, that's actually where Z100 was there.
Yes.
And Chio, the freaking Puerto Rican, you remember him?
Yes.
And he told us that night about the World Trade Center bombing, the first one that was 1993.
Oh my goodness.
You remember that?
Wow.
Yeah.
It's all coming back to me. I do remember that.
Yeah, that was insane. I also remember when we talk about art now, art has always been a hobby for me. I never defined myself as an artist or anything, but I love drawing. I aspired when I was a kid to be a cartoonist before everything else kicked in. But I remember, as an artist, you kind of have your style and how you do things or whatever. And I remember the first time I saw you drawing and the way you held a pen. That's a memory I will never forget, that I was like, holy shit, like it's incredible how good she is at what she does. And you talk about hacking, right? Like, you just figure out how to get things done. So it's something I want you to know, like I always admired about you as a teenager, and then even later on in life, which we'll get to. Speaking of teen years, talk about teen years to me a little bit.
Yeah, I think teen years can be rough for everyone. I think just in general, when we're teenagers, we're looking to fit in. As much as we don't like to think of ourselves as followers and leaders, I did want to be part of the kick line, and I did want to be part of the cheerleading team and all of that. And it was, it kind of, because at that time in your life, those activities, those physical activities really can and do define your social circle at school, right? Because you're spending all this time with these kids after school, and you're working as a team, and that really brings people together. So I felt like I was just shot out of that opportunity. So I kind of had to find these other, whether it was clubs or the theater group, which we were together in, and these other outlets that I could participate in. But still, it was bittersweet. It was, awesome because it was high school, but it was, it was still that internal struggling with, shit, I can't do that, or I can't do that, or just feeling left out in a lot of scenarios.
Yeah, and this might sound silly to you. I'm not trying to over dramatize this word when I say it, but do you feel like, because you've gone through all of this stuff, and now you are an advocate that helps people, which again we'll get to, do you feel to a degree like a sort of pioneer in this? And the reason I use the word pioneer, I know it sounds big, right? But like I said before, we didn't have the same language when we were younger that they have now. We didn't have the same opportunities, the same channels. Somebody with a disability when we were younger was relegated to a certain path in their life, and that was kind of it. And now here you are as an adult who you advocate for people with disabilities. You help teach people a path. I hope somebody's listening to this that's the parent of a child that is trying to find that path and just sees how many opportunities there are now as opposed to like when we were younger. Does that word ever pop in your head for you or any of your peers that you work with?
I mean, I don't know if it's that word specifically, but I am very aware that I've been in the right place at the right time as far as like the whole disability advocacy movement, which has really gained incredible momentum in the past few years. I think social media is a big part of that reason why. We just didn't have as many opportunities to really see people with disabilities living their lives. And so social media, I feel, has kind of opened the window to that world. And it's kind of Pandora's box at this point where, there's no going back. But yeah, you're right. I mean, this disability was something that I was always trying, after those earlier years, I had kind of like my outside life of advocacy. But then when I went back to school, it was like, I got to hide the braces. I have to hide my disability. I have to just try and be as normal as everyone else. I have to keep up with everyone else with a smile on my face. And that can be really exhausting. So I think, I'm not sure if I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but yeah, I think I have always been just somebody who's followed my instincts to some degree. Like I really kind of, my brain follows my heart and not the other way around. So, I just, when these opportunities came into my life, years after, later on as an adult, it just resonated so strongly with those early years of advocacy. And I kind of almost just had this, I remember who I am, after college, and, you have to go down the whole career path and marriage and kids. And I kind of thought that part of my life was over, right? But then I just had this opportunity to speak up again, and it felt good. And I had people come up to me, and people reacting and saying thank you, or I feel the same way too. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for helping. So yeah, for me, it's just been a really full circle moment, and I love shining the spotlight on advocates. It's not just, it's not me. It's me shining the spotlight on people who are breaking stigmas in the disability world. That really excites me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. So we talk about, volunteerism and activism and everything. As you sort of went through the motions of life, and, we talked a little bit about it. You went to FIT. We could talk about whatever you want at this point, but I watched the budding career of an incredible designer. I remember when we were out of college, and you were doing all kinds of stuff that was so cool to watch. And then, you kind of found your tribe. You found this groove in life where, whether it was volunteering, whatever it was that brought you back to it, you found activism again. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think, we all think we know what our career is going to be. We go to college, we study a certain skill set, we set off into the world looking for work in that area, and we think we have it all planned out, right? We're gonna climb the ladder, and that ladder for me was, I'm gonna become a famous interior designer. I'm gonna design my own furniture. I'm gonna be in magazines. My stuff's gonna be on the shelf on Target, and it's
all happened. Every one of those things happened, by the way, folks. I just want to throw that out there. I know she's minimalizing it here, but
but yeah, that's what I thought success was at that time in my life. And as I checked off those boxes, it still felt like something was missing. And I think that happens to a lot of us in life, that, we think that, that corner office or that quote unquote dream job is going to make us happy. But at the end of the day, it's about purpose. And that wasn't something that I was very conscious of yet, but I knew something was missing. I knew I wasn't happy. I knew I was just designing stuff at the end of the day. And I was like, well, what is this stuff doing? And I just happened to come across this documentary called Bernadette on Facebook. Amazing. A trailer for this documentary. And it was the first time in my life that I saw somebody living with a CMT on a screen. And, she had cameras follow her around for 3 years, just capturing her life and her journey. And it just kind of split me open. And I was so inspired by her, because I knew, oh my God, this woman's going to change the world. She is the voice for CMT. Like, I reached out to her, and something about that movie was just like, I want to be like her. I want to be like her. And, that was the start of volunteering for H&F, who was the organization that funded the film. And literally within months, I was spending the weekend at Bernadette's house, and we became friends, and she introduced me to the organization, and I started volunteering, and I started taking that creative side of me and literally just throwing ideas on the table for this organization.
Yeah, channeling it.
Yeah, just what if you do this, or we could do this, or we could help raise money by doing this. And yeah, I was just so inspired. And it was the first time where I was really combining these two lives that I've been living for so long. It was like advocacy and the creativity. So I felt like I could put my whole self into this one purpose and this one line of work. And for a lot of people, we feel like we're splitting our lives down the middle. And I think when we can make that connection, it's alignment. And that's when we can really drive impact and change.
Yeah. So in that moment when you sort of discovered Bernadette, the documentary, and it led you down a certain path, right? Something that we call on the Launchcast here, a spark moment. Any moment that, good, bad, or indifferent, just leads you down a path in life. And so I saw that. I remember that specific time period. We were chatting about it. I think that's around the time that I was getting involved with Shannon's fight. My big spark moment in life that led me down a completely different path in my life. Talk to me for a moment about representation. This for me, when I look at this, it's this moment where I saw a shift in you. And I couldn't really define it then. It was later on that I really, was able to define what Estela does and what she's about and what she cares about, what she's passionate about. What did it feel like to be represented on a screen for the first time? And what did that do for you in the long term about putting a fire in your belly to sort of understand that the want for representation and the need for representation are two different things, and that representation is abso-fucking-lutely a need, a necessity. What did that do for you, that moment, in terms of Bernadette and seeing somebody who represented you on a screen?
Yeah, like I said, it cracked me open, and I couldn't help but just go. She was just like this lighthouse, this is how I describe her. I was just like, that's the direction I need to go right now. And
like a beacon.
I was just in a place in my life where I was just like, if I'm not a designer, what the hell am I? What am I doing here? And she literally answered that question in that 2 hours of that film. And I think the beauty of representation is that it literally connects people, and it's not about my face on a screen, or my face on a commercial. It's more than that. It's saying to other people that they belong there, that their voice matters. And I think that's the beauty of storytelling and letting yourself become vulnerable, because there's no other way to do it. There's no other way to be a true representative without becoming vulnerable and just speaking your truth. And, Bernadette was such an amazing representation of that. Like she was laughing on screen. She was cursing on screen. It was just unfiltered. And I was like, this is what people need to see. This is how we get people to care enough to make change. And I think that's why it's so powerful to share our stories, because that is how people find you and connect to that mission.
Yeah, that's incredible. And from that moment on, and we had lost touch for a little while. We all go through life, and we both been through some similar stuff, marriage and kids and divorce and the whole deal. And here we are years later, sort of reconnecting, and there was the same Estela that I knew, but different. There was just something different about you, and I loved it because it was a very similar shift that I went through too. It was just like finding a purpose. I guess that's the way I could define it. There was a different purpose there in both of us, and you started doing some incredible things. Talk about testifying in front of the FDA in 2018.
Yeah, I think that's our organization does some incredible work, and part of that is informing the FDA about the need for clinical trials and research and funding for Charcot-Marie-Tooth, because it is the most common inherited neuropathy, and it's just as common as MS. And, most people have never heard of Charcot-Marie-Tooth. So, part of our mission was to really educate the FDA. And how do we do that? Through storytelling. The art of representation includes what is the patient experience and why should people care about this disease? What is the impact of this disease? So it really gave me an opportunity to kind of look back and say, how has this disease impacted me? The good and the bad, because that's the only way we really are going to be able to get people to care enough to put money behind the research that we so very much need for this.
Yeah.
So that was my first time speaking publicly and being vulnerable about this disease. And, In my talk, I described CMT as the invisible friend that you never want, because when I look back, it was always there, no matter what I was doing. And there was no there's no separation between disease and your life. It's something that is entangled in, I said, your life's biggest decisions and the smallest details, down to whether or not I could put my daughter's hair in ponytails, to whether I could see my kids ski for the first time. All of that is just drastically impacted. And it just really felt great to be a voice for the 2.6 million people around the world living with this.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to shift for a second before we get back on this path. So you mentioned your kids. Talk to me about the impact, first of all, the impact that your disability has had on your life as a mother.
Yeah, I mean, motherhood has always been something in the back of my mind, because we never fully understood the genetics of this disease, how me and my sister both ended up with it. The technology has not been around until just recently. I got confirmation that my children would never show symptoms of this disease, and they're completely without CMT. But it was scary. It was scary not knowing whether or not I was going to pass this along, and worried about whether or not I was going to lose grip of my kid's hand crossing the street, or buckle them into a car seat, because it does affect my hands and feet pretty severely. So, all of those little details about motherhood that we worry about, a lot of that was magnified for me. But at the same time, it helped create kids that were really empathetic and really aware and observant of people's needs, and sensitive to disability in general. And, when my son, just remember my son was maybe 7 years old, and I just remember we were, going into a store, and he put his arm out without me asking. He just put his arm out because he knew that I was going to need help coming up the curb. And just, those little things, I'm just like, oh, it makes me tear up, because they are, as hard as it has been for them to grow up with this as well, there's been a lot of gifts that I think have come from it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. How old was your son when that happened?
About 7 or 8. He was young.
Crazy. Obviously already taller than you at that point. Well, they've been taller than you since pretty much birth. So
yeah, that's a whole other challenge.
So as we sort of get back to this path of advocacy, one of the coolest moments in my life has definitely been, I should say group of moments, but having the ability to host a stage that people can get on and share these important ideas. And so as a public speaker myself and a TEDx alumnus, in 2019, I embarked on producing the first TEDx Farmingdale event. And it was kind of cool because we had open applications, and I knew that I would pick a slew of our talks from open applications. And then there were the people that I knew deserved a stage and had something to say, even though they might not have known in that very moment what it was. But I just remember reconnecting with you and seeing that fire there, and like kind of watching like proudly as you, in those couple of years, right now, I'm not trying to talk down to you when I say this. This isn't the patriarchy taking over. This is me like looking at somebody that was budding so quickly in this aspect of their lives, and I was so proud to watch it, to kind of go like, I can't wait to see like what she does next, because she's very quickly going to, just become a complete badass in what she's doing. And it was a very proud moment to be able to go, hey, Estela, you need to take this stage, let's get you on there and let's figure out what you're going to do. Talk about, the road to becoming a TEDx speaker, and of course your talk, Repurpose Your Pain, which is what we called this episode after your TEDx talk.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching TED Talks before anybody knew what the hell a TED Talk was. Like, I just remember watching and just like never getting enough of them. And, the minute you told me that you were going to be hosting one, I was like, oh my God, I wasn't even thinking about becoming a speaker. I was like, I'm not even, that didn't even literally cross my mind. I just knew I wanted to be part of the team and help and like, let me know whatever you need, George. And then I remember you telling me, well, I was kind of hoping you'd do a talk. And I was like, what? Like, seriously, my heart stopped because that was always something like way back on the back burner of things I would love to accomplish in my life. But I just had this idea of a TED talk of someone that was like, super experienced in their field with like a PhD and like all these accolades. And so I had to kind of shut down that, that self doubt and just be like, okay, let me think about it for a little while. And then I just realized like, I have no idea what I'm going to say, but I can't say no to an opportunity to do a
Yeah.
TEDx talk. So that was it. And like, you seriously really helped me kind of carve out my, just those first rough bullets of what a potential talk could look like. And it was really such a great opportunity to self-reflect and look at my life and say, what do these dots add up to? What's kind of like the big picture here, of what I'm trying to accomplish. And yeah, it just came back to repurposing your pain, and it was something that I wanted everyone to be able to connect with, the idea of taking a painful experience in your life or a painful circumstance or some sort of adversity that we've all to some degree experienced in our life, and switching that around and finding power in that and finding purpose and becoming that person that you needed at that point in your life. And that was just, that was the main message.
Yeah. And that's the cool part about these things, because I never believed that you need the PhD to do something like that. I'm always the opposite. I'm the experience guy, right? You learn from experience. Of course, you learn from school. Like I don't take that away from anybody, but to be able to learn this lesson throughout, your years of life centered around what you've gone through, right? And the difficulties you've gone through, and not just with your disability, with anything. And then being able to give a talk where that it sort of transcends, yeah, okay, here, let's talk about CMT, let's talk about everything I've gone through, but it's not just about CMT, it's about pain. And there's pain in everybody's lives. And if we can repurpose that, look what we could turn it into. I don't even want to give it away. We're going to have in the show notes a link to Estela's TEDx talk. And by the way, go back to episode 302. You were on 302. The second part of the TEDx Farmingdale Roundtable series, to hear a little bit more about that. But I'm going to put the link to her talk in the show notes. There's some really, really great stuff in there. There's a very cool surprise in the talk. So check that out, guys. And, give her some love for that talk, because you really did an incredible job with that talk. It was so fun to work with you and collaborate on that. And, if I could sort of have these goggles on where I could see what your talk is going to look like before you even came up with the talk, it's almost like I imagine you giving this exact, it's like the talk you were meant to give on the red dot,
Yeah.
And it was so cool to see that.
And that's exactly how it felt. Like
Yeah.
if I was gonna leave one message to the world in my lifetime, that's what it is. I mean, and I think that's what TEDx allows you to do, is really reflect on, like, if I had one message to leave the world, what would it be? Like, that's a big ask. So that's why I think there is so much pressure, but it really, you were just so collaborative with it. And I think we just worked so well, just developing it
Yeah.
and fine tuning it and making it relevant. And the irony of that was I was literally standing on the same stage at the high school that I was when we did theater club and put on musicals. And I just remember, being on that stage in high school and being just like so terrified to fall over, or so terrified that someone would see my braces, or it's so terrified to be in the spotlight, because I was always like the chorus, like I would get made fun of. I was like the tree in the background, but I was just so excited to be part of it. But this time I was like, no, this time I'm literally in the spotlight by myself on the stage, rocking my braces with a short skirt. And like, it was just such a full circle moment for me. And like, it couldn't have been more poetic.
Yeah. Oh my God. Seriously. Right. So I've had many of those moments in that very school myself. It's crazy when life sort of comes full circle and we can really, give a lesson out like repurpose your pain. Because if the audience here can sort of take one lesson from this, one takeaway, it's that pain is sort of, I don't know, as you kind of get older and you learn to repurpose it, the pain, the identity of the pain sort of goes away, right? Mm-hmm. Like it loses identity and it just becomes a thing. It just becomes pain. It becomes another thing that you have to overcome. And so, even for me, if it's whatever I've gone through in my life, whether it's divorce, whether it's, job loss, failure in a business, whatever the case is, that after a while, when you sort of learned how to repurpose it and overcome it and transcend it, that all lost its identity. It didn't matter what it was that was my pain. It mattered that I learned how to overcome it and I could help other people do it. And that's what you did with this talk. So kudos to you for that. I have a note here in my notes with an interesting phrase, interabled relationships. Talk on that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, dating is hard in general, but when you throw disability into the mix, there's a lot of unpacking to do. And I think it's a term that has just started to get some attention, in social media and across the advocacy groups. Because I think up until recently, goes back to representation, we really haven't seen many people with, like, I'm talking about real actors with disabilities, real performers on stage with disabilities, people in the spotlight. And so with that, now that we are seeing that, we're seeing, well, what do their lives look like? Are they married? Do they have children? Do they have families? And, I think it's something that we really need to break some stigmas about. This is kind of, one of the reasons why we started our podcast, is to talk about the trials and tribulations of dating with a disability and how you communicate as a person with a disability to your spouse. How you carry yourself in the world is literally going to determine the type of person that you attract. If I feel sorry for myself throughout life, I'm going to attract somebody that, is going to be also ashamed of my disability to some degree, and is going to, act in a certain way because of the way that I see myself. So I think empowering people to say, yes, I have a disability. Yes, I can still, be sexual. I can still be sexy. I can still date. I can still have wonderful, healthy relationships. There's a great hashtag on Instagram called 100 out of 100, using the numbers. And it's all interabled couples. And I think up until recently, like, now we're seeing people on social media, and we did a screening of an incredible documentary called Take a Look at This Heart, of interable couples. And I think the main message is that disability can happen to anyone at any point in their life.
Yeah.
And we tend to think of disability as like, oh, disability is about them. It's not about me. It's, those people with disabilities. No, like you can literally wake up tomorrow and be disabled. You can get into a car accident and then what? Are you no longer able to date or have a relationship? Like that's not how life happens. It's not how life works. So I think just showing the beauty of interable couples is something that's really interested me because it hasn't been done before. So yeah, I mean, it's something that we're working on, and
Yeah. Quick shout out to Ben Duffy with Take a Look at This
Yes.
Hard. Ben Duffy, incredible director. We had him on early on in season 1. It was one of the heaviest episodes we've ever had of the Launchcast. Really, really amazing episode. He's such a great dude. Please follow his work and support him. Please. Incredible stuff. You can, I'll put in the show notes a link back to that episode so people can listen to it. You mentioned the podcast before. I want to talk about a couple of things before we start wrapping up. I want to talk about the stuff that you're putting out there now that you are like a number one advocate in the world for like everything. The Embrace It podcast, Breaking Stigmas, that started in 2019, right?
Yeah. I mean, it formed really organically with a friend of mine who I met shortly before that. Her name is Lainey Ishbia. She also has CMT, and she had this this really great social worker background. And we started just doing some workshops at the events that we were doing for the organization. And I just loved her energy. She was doing, she did this workshop on how to communicate when you have a disability, and she did like role playing and all this like really interactive stuff. I was like, oh my God, I've never thought of disability in this way and the impact that our language around disability can have on just our quality of life and our relationships. So yeah, I mean, we formed this really great friendship, and we would have these conversations, and we're like, we know not everyone has that friends with a disability that they can talk to. So we wanted to bring those conversations to the community. And from there, we started interviewing other people with disabilities, advocates in the disability world, and just hearing about their incredible stories, and inclusive dance companies and actors and actresses and fashion models. And I just love it because it really shines a light on this wide spectrum of disability. It's not just, blind or deaf or autism. It's, everyone under this wide umbrella.
Yeah, amazing. To go further, how to communicate about disability workshops and future course. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so, I believe that in order to be the best disability advocate for other people, you first have to be your own advocate, and you have to learn how to advocate for yourself. So our workshops are really built around that idea of empowering people to harness that inner advocate for themselves, how to speak about their disability without shame, how to be able to use humor to get what they need, or how to ask for accommodations without feeling like they're a burden. So we really put together these workshops to create a framework on how people can slowly shift their mindset from feeling like a victim to feeling empowered and like a leader, so that they can join this advocacy world, because we need people speaking up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, we'll have links in the show notes for how you can contact Estela for these workshops, to book her. And you need to. Companies out there that are looking to have some really, really important, thoughtful workshops, this is something to consider. All right, we're almost there. We're almost at the big three. I want to talk about full circle, right? You attended FIT right out of high school, and all of a sudden came back for FIT Design for Social Impact, the course that you're teaching. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, this is where purpose is so crazy because once you align with your purpose, like literally the dots start to connect themselves and you don't have to worry about the next step. It just kind of falls into place. So that screening of that film, Take a Look at This Heart, about interable relationships, took place at FIT. And when we were doing that screening, I came across these two awesome professors that were doing, we're teaching classes and programs around design, but design that made a difference in the world, that had a positive impact. And so out of the blue in 2020, they reached out to me saying that, they remembered my disability advocacy work and they were putting together this new program called Design for Social Impact. And they wanted to have a section in there about inclusivity and accessibility and how that relates to design and how we can, as designers, how we can help create a more inclusive world. And so they offered me the position to co-teach the class with them, along with Hannah Getachew, she's an incredible social entrepreneur, also good friend and Farmingdale high school graduate. So it all came together, and so we help teach these budding designers the importance of disability inclusion in their work and how their design is going to impact whether or not people with disabilities have access to buildings or products or apps and everything across the board.
Yeah, amazing. And I know how jazzed you got when that opportunity came up and you were able to sort of come back to and do this work at FIT. And Hannah Getachew, by the way, was also she was actually a panel member on one of our How to Be a Human Being episodes, really, really important series that we did about the Black Lives Matter movement back in our first season, I think. First, second, I don't know, somewhere there. We'll put it in the show notes. Why not? You know what? Let me wrap up by asking you. I had a couple of things in the notes, but I think we'll have you back for more one day to continue these conversations because there's so much more stuff going on. And I am in the middle, by the way, of binging your podcast. It's something that I had not ever had a chance to catch up on. And so I have a few new podcasts that I'm adding to it. So we'll report back next time you're on that. Yeah. The last question before we move on to the big three is, what is next? What is next for you, Estela?
You know what? I think now in this post-COVID world, one of the silver linings of it has been we can access so many more people in the disability community. And so, the workshops that Lainey and I were doing in person, we're now putting into an online course. And hopefully that will be ready to go sometime next year. We just want to reach more people. We want to create more leaders. And, part of the excitement of following your purpose is that you never know what's around the corner. So I'm always open to new surprises and new opportunities, and we'll see where that leads me.
Amazing. Guys, it's time for the big three.
The big three from the Launchcast.
The big three. Okay, I'm going to throw out a few things for you here, Estela. You're going to give me your top three quick, concise answers for each. Ready?
Number one, tacos.
Tacos. There we go. That's the show, guys. Let me put the outro on. No, just kidding. All right. First one. Favorite three places that you've traveled ever?
Oh, well, this is going to be easy now.
Yeah.
Italy, Venice, definitely. Highly recommend. Lake Como, Switzerland.
Specifically George Clooney's house. Yeah, go ahead. Tell him.
Specifically George Clooney's house. More specifically, his helipad. But yeah.
I'm watching Estela's journey as she was on vacation a while back, and it's like, oh, we're in Lake Como. Oh, look, there's George Clooney's house. Then it's like, yeah, I'm inside his air conditioning vent. I see him in the bathtub.
I totally manifested it. I had no idea. It was the funniest thing. You know, like we were joking the whole time. I'm going to see George Clooney. Then our Airbnb was literally directly in the in the line of sight of his villa. So we were stalking him on the daily.
That's amazing.
But, yeah.
Rough trip in terms of accessibility, though, right?
Brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah.
More so for my boyfriend who had to piggyback me up a few hundred stairs. But yeah, I think it definitely gives me more appreciation for the U.S. As much work as we still need to do, but the ADA is truly a blessing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's so funny because a lot of the parts that make these places inaccessible are also part of its beauty.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Sure. No, it makes sense.
Like, you know, it's a love-hate relationship I have with these old towns and these beautiful scenic cities.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I remember going to Miami with you years back, and that was hard enough. That was hard enough.
God. I think I blacked that out.
No, correction. You were blacked out during that whole thing.
I probably had to.
All right. So this is a tough one. 3 moments where you felt like specific moments that you can remember where you felt like disability ruled your life.
Wow. Whew. There's moments where I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
And one of those moments was actually last weekend at a wedding. And like, if you know anything about my parents, they are like the most incredible dancers. My father can literally still spin my mom like the 80 miles an hour on a dance floor, and he's like 77. But yeah, just slowly losing the ability to dance really fucks with my head because I love to dance. I'm Puerto Rican. I love music. So yeah, that's one moment that's just like, fuck. Disability ruled my life. Shit. I'm trying to think of any, when I fall, you know, a lot of times like my legs are weak and I will just, it's like somebody took a baseball bat. It's like that scene from like Dumb and Dumber where Jim Carrey gets it in the back of the legs with the bat. Like that is me when I fall. And you've witnessed it plenty of times.
I have witnessed it. And by the way, I am not laughing at disability. I'm laughing specifically at Estela.
Sometimes I go down in like slow motion, which is really funny. But other times, like 9 out of 10 times, I'm okay. Like I get up within like a minute and I laugh it off. But like there's that 1 out of 10 times where I get hurt and I'm just like, God damn it.
Yeah.
It knocks the wind out of you. I can be literally crossing the street in Manhattan. I can be in front of a room of people. I can be on the top stairs of Howard Junior High School in front of the wrestling team. True story. So yeah, I'm like, fuck. But it's I don't know. Those are the moments where you learn to laugh at yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
We'll stick with 2 on this. We could do 2.
Yeah,
It's
let's
okay.
stick with 2.
Yeah. Can you pinpoint another tough one, and then we'll get easy. Can you pinpoint 3 specific, when we talk about repurposing your pain, can you pinpoint 3 specific moments of pain that you, looking back now, know that you have repurposed in your life?
Mm-hmm. When I have calls, I just had an amazing Zoom call with a family from Spain last week. And I actually brought my parents on this call because this man's son is newly diagnosed. He's 6 years old. And they are, going through the same thing my parents went through when we were diagnosed. So we had a Zoom call and, he was asking questions and my parents were just talking about how it was growing up and how they raised me and giving them advice. And, there were moments in there like we were all trying not to get choked up. But, there was a moment there where he said, if my son ends up like your daughter, then we will be happy. And I was just like, oh my God, like
That's
this
amazing.
this is what sharing your story does to people, because
Yeah.
it gives them an example of what somebody's life can be, that it doesn't have to be doom and gloom, whether or not you end up in a wheelchair, I think for a lot of parents, they're just so worried. Is my kid going to be able to
Yeah.
have a family? Is my kid going to be able to walk? And what happens if they can? Like, are they going to be able to hold a job? And when they see people like myself sharing their story, they're like, okay, there's somebody that did it. So that was an incredible moment.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And by the way, I would pay anything to see Miguel on a Zoom call. Anything. Because I will tell you one thing. Yesterday, I asked my dad if he had something in the garage, a piece of radio equipment, because something broke in my office. Anyway, he's got a whole bunch of garbage in his garage, and he goes, I'm getting back to the house soon, and I'll call you. So he FaceTimes me, and this was 7 tries of FaceTiming, and he's like, do you see it? And I'm like, I am looking at your face. You have to flip the camera around. And then it'll be like he'll flip the phone, but he'll also flip the other button. So again, I'm looking at his face. He's like, do you see it now? And I'm like, oh my God. Are my ears bleeding?
Yeah, it's not much better on our ends. And plus the language barrier makes it even that much more fun. But yeah. It's adorable.
Oh,
God
it
bless
is
him.
adorable. God bless him. Best damn lawn on Long Island ever. Formerly, I should say. All right, last one on the big 3, and then I have a more serious question for you. 3 goals for the future. 3 big goals for the future. Does not have to be professional, by the way.
Yeah, I just want to really pursue my physical health. I want to push the limits on what my body can do. I want to see how much of this progression is something that I can reverse. So yeah, I'm kind of taking that on as a new challenge. This whole dancing thing really pissed me off. So now I'm just like, I'm working out twice as much, and that's my goal, is to really get back on the dance floor. So that's 1. 2 is I'm part of a really exciting gene therapy project for this specific mutation of CMT that I have. And so my goal is to be one of the first people in the clinical trial to test this out as a human lab rat. And if I end up with horns and a tail, so be it. But yeah, so that's definitely on my bucket list of things to do. And 3 is I just want to keep traveling the world to as many countries as I can. I have an incredible partner that empowers me to do that. And yeah, there's no limits.
I love it. I'm so glad you mentioned the gene therapy lab rat thing. I had it in my notes, and it was just, there's so much stuff here that I couldn't get to everything, but I'm glad you mentioned that. All right, so that's it for the big 3. I have a real question for you. This is more advice for you. So, disability comes in many shapes, sizes, forms, and so you kind of stole my thunder a little bit before, talking about your conversation with, where you brought your parents onto that call and everything. What kind of advice would you give? I have a new little baby girl, well, not so new anymore. She's 14 months old, who has a disability. She has hearing loss. She wears hearing aids. Something that, look, we're riding the wave, and we are doing everything we can at this point. We're educating ourselves. We're as parents trying to give her every opportunity to not only overcome, but to just adapt to what life is going to be like. But I'm a dad, and I'm all heart, and I'm scared to death for her. And like like those people said to you, if my daughter can grow up with a disability and turn out just like you, I will have done my job. So what advice, as first of all, as a parent, would you have, or what advice for my daughter would you have?
Yeah, I think one of the most powerful things to do, whether you're a parent or a child, is just to connect. Like that tribe will carry you. I mean, I'm sure you have a million questions in your minds, and connecting with other families that have been down similar roads and have made those milestones that, are in the back of your head, I think is really therapeutic. And just educating yourself on the everything from the research to the technology to the medical side of it, I think is really empowering. A lot of times people are scared to do that, and they read the most like worst case scenarios. But yeah, I would really just dive deep into the advocacy community, because I think you'll draw a lot of inspiration and strength from that. Just seeing other people, experience similar challenges. And disability is something that is part of the human experience. We're all going to get old at some point in our life, right? We're all going to lose some form of mobility.
Speak for yourself.
But I think it's just something that we need to lose our grip on, that fear aspect of disability, and understand that it's something to be celebrated and never ashamed of, right? That's the worst thing I think a parent can do, is be ashamed of their child because they're different, or discourage their child from speaking out about their disability or showing their disability. I see hearing aids now that have like flowers, and they're beautiful, and that's what disability should be. It should be something that's beautiful and celebrated, and part of the beauty of diversity.
Absolutely. Estela Lugo, ladies and gentlemen, what a beautiful human being. Thank you so much, so much for doing this. This is going to help a lot of people, this interview. And follow Estela. We're going to have all of her links in the show notes. Check out her podcast that we mentioned. Just follow this chick. She's doing amazing things. All right. Thank you, Estela.
Don't follow me too close, though, because I might knock into you.
I'm going to put you back in the green room, and then I'll say goodbye to you after the show. Thank you, my friend. I'll do my little outro here. Oh, man. This screen just got a whole lot uglier. Guys, we did it. I got to tear up these show notes. We killed this thing. This is season 3 of the Launchcast. You think we're fucking around? We're not fucking around here. It's getting crazy with leadership. We are going to go so deep, and the whole point of this season is to get you guys to not just listen to this thing and learn about leadership. You've done enough listening. Get the fuck up, stand up, and do something. That's the point of this thing. I'm so charged up right now this was an incredible interview last night, and I'm going to talk about this another week. Last night, I had such a cool moment at our Board of Ed meeting, as a public speaker, as an advocate. Oh man, I can't wait to tell you guys about that. But leading into the TEDx Farmingdale 2021 weekend, this is the perfect way to jump in. So thank you for joining us again, guys. Thank you to our guest, Estela Lugo. We'll see you next time.
Launch sequence terminated.
Into the black hole.
Thanks for listening to the Launchcast today. Please make sure to subscribe to this feed wherever podcasts are available. Follow me, George Andriopoulos, at Launchpad CEO on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And make sure to visit our website, guys, thelaunchcast.com. Looking forward to the next episode. See you soon, guys.